Hey, this is Madalyn Sklar.
And Suze Cooper, and you're listening to All Things Audio. Our first tweet today is one that Morgan sent out during the week, and it's about Spaces crashing. Now, considering we've just had an issue where something didn't work like we were expecting, Madalyn, this seems like the perfect tweet to start with, doesn't it?
It really is. I was a little nervous at the start of this space because, when we're on mobile here, I also have to, for all spaces I'm involved with, I have to have my desktop open as well because it's bigger. And I just feel like I can navigate really quickly. And I noticed right when we were starting this space that it seems to be okay on mobile, but on desktop, and it's still doing it, right under any profile you're on, the little retry, something went wrong, try reloading. Like the tweets are there. Sometimes that happens and all your tweets are gone in the feed. But so I don't know, something is going on with Twitter right now. I'm not sure what exactly, because everything else seems fine. It's just this one thing I'm noticing.
Yeah, I mean, I had that last week sometime when nothing would load at all. And I've also noticed that I've been in spaces and on the desktop, it's not showing that I'm in the space with the purple halo. So again, I don't know if that's a glitch or anything anyone else has noticed, but I was definitely in the space, but on my screen and on my phone, I was in the space. I could see the purple halo, but I couldn't see it on the desktop. So maybe just one of those things, but yeah.
Same here. I see it now. On both you and I, since we're in here hosting and co-hosting, I do see the purple halo. What I do on mobile, I mentioned to you last week, like normally I just wait for it to pop up in the notification when you start this space because I do the set reminder. And that's one of the great features of the set reminder for spaces in a tweet is that it'll show up in your notifications. But lately, I'm not seeing them in the notification. So I'll go to your profile and I'll just keep refreshing until I see the purple halo. And you started the space and I did not see the purple. And I'm like, uh-oh, now that's broken too. And what happened was the way I knew you had started this, once it refreshed, no purple halo, but it went right to you had started the space because the little chat tweet popped up. And that's how I knew you were live, because it said live. So isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Very, very odd things happening. We said odd things would happen and we were right. There's one of our predictions for 2023 just being proven right already. But yeah, interesting. This tweet that Morgan shared, it's obviously a space that has started up, that the host has kicked off the space. And in the end, they've used the old space link to let people know that the space had crashed and they need to go and follow a certain account to find the new link for the space. Now, spaces crashing was a big deal when this thing was first built and was first here. But over the months and the year, it actually got a lot less likely that you were going to get kicked out of a space or that something was going to freeze or go wrong. So I really hope this isn't the start of things sort of breaking down. I mean, 3 minutes into this space, according to this little screenshot, they had 289 people. I mean, how gutted would you be that your space crashes? You've got all those people. And as we know, trying to get everybody back in and let people know where they need to be isn't straightforward. And it's definitely not straightforward if you don't have a purple halo around your profile picture and people go back to your profile and can't just immediately go, oh, they are live somewhere. Where are they? I'll click on their profile pic. That will take me to where they are. Like, if that's not happening, then the circle is broken. So yeah, it's kind of gutting to see that they had like nearly 300 people in there. They were only live for 3 minutes and it crashed. I really hope this isn't the beginning of something, Madalyn.
I know. I've been hearing more reports of spaces crashing on people. It hasn't happened to me in a very, very long time. So thank goodness. But I mean, isn't this something we would expect considering the reduced staff at Twitter? We know there's a lot less people on the spaces team, less engineers in general. I feel like it would be normal. Like, I'm actually surprised we don't see more issues with Twitter. I mean, I think it really shows that they have a rock star team, which is great. But I guess we should not be surprised from time to time when things like this happen.
I suppose it shows that it actually got to quite a good place before those other people left as well, in that it's been quite stable. I mean, I'm touching all the wood I can find. It's been quite stable in these, throughout the instability of Twitter itself. Actually, generally, unless it's been taken down by certain people, has actually been okay. So That's a good thing. That's testament to those engineers and designers that were working behind the scenes so hard to make this a thing. It's obviously, quite stable and robust generally. But yeah, I'm just I really hope we don't start hearing more and more people saying that their spaces are crashing.
Right, because that would definitely be concerning. But we know Elon Musk likes spaces. Hopefully he's putting enough resources behind it. The thing that's so interesting with Twitter, where we're at now in 2023, is they don't have a communications or marketing team. So we just don't know. Really, the way we know what's going on is through Elon's tweets. And I think he likes it that way. So we don't always know things that are going on behind the scenes. It's just, seeing a tweet like this. I'm so glad Morgan had shared this, that, because this was obviously a big space going on, and for it to crash and then getting people back in, it is super challenging. But I think it's just, things that we're going to see from time to time. And let's just hope that, spaces doesn't go away or break down too bad, because we all here love spaces and we want it to continue.
Absolutely. Right, let's move on and talk a little bit about Clubhouse. This one caught my eye again from Morgan about the Clubhouse website redesign. It's quite interesting that it's very geared towards hanging out and being with your friends rather than creating shows and events and these kind of online, almost radio show spectaculars. It's really, it feels like they've kind of softened their approach to what social audio could be, with a real lean in on that social aspect. And I found that really interesting. I mean, obviously you and I, Madalyn, have found social audio over here on Spaces great for community, great for building relationships. But for Clubhouse to really put their stake in the ground with a redesign that sort of really hinges on that, I think is super interesting, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's smart that they're seeing the power of community and networking and using the space for that. I will admit, in the early days of Clubhouse, when I first got on, it always just felt like it was just TED Talks everywhere. I didn't really feel that sense of community so much. But I think this is really great to hear. I haven't been on this new website. I need to go check it out. But it definitely sounds interesting that that's the direction they're trying to put their focus on.
I think initially people were still figuring out what the content should really be. And I guess we fall back on what we know. So, this is live audio, therefore, is it radio? Is it a TED Talk? Is it a presented thing? And actually what it's really been good for is almost like a live group phone call, which, George, I'm looking at you.
George, the expert on.
Yeah, it's got its basis in that. And actually that is really what it seems to be very good at doing and propelling forward and building those relationships in that way. So rather than having, as you say, a soapbox or a TEDx event thing that you want to kind of get out there and put your opinion across on, it's more about just finding people that are like-minded and really building those relationships. So yeah, super interesting to see that Clubhouse are actually saying that about the product though, and whether or not that changes the way that Clubhouse creators approach what they do when they spin up a room, I suppose. Yeah. Our next bit of Clubhouse news is about payment proposals. And I'm definitely going to defer to Morgan and Michael on this one.
Hi, both. So first up on this is, of course, a leak. So there's going to be some speculation. But we do know quite a bit about this already, because the Clubhouse team have run a couple of rooms on this. It's part of what they're calling subscription houses. So this part that Alexandro leaked is the basic idea you need is you have a house, which is your community. You've been building this with others, maybe, and part of that is that you've raised some funds as a house, right? So the house has some funds, and what this is doing is it's a way to make a proposal to the members of that house, and they can vote on it. Now, we're not quite clear exactly how this works yet, but it looks like it's something that you would make a proposal and you would say, this member of the house should be paid a certain amount of money to do a certain thing, something like that. They will make this thing happen. And the people who are subscribers of that house can vote and say, that's a great idea, or probably not. And if it gets over 50%, the transaction is approved. That member gets some money from the house funds and can make the thing happen. So it's a way of having a group of people deciding what it is that they do together and unlocking funds that they've managed to gather together. There's a whole other question about how they get that funds in the first place.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Yeah, do we know how they're making this money? Are they considering that they're going to be selling tickets for events in Clubhouse and that's how the money's going to be made by the house? Or have we got any inkling of how that money might be made?
We do. So there's the clue in the word subscription house here. So to start with, what they've decided is the best thing that a community or a creator can probably have, if you have to choose one thing, is recurring revenue. So all the people who are subscribers in the house have said, yeah, for whatever this is, I'm prepared to pay a certain amount a month. And that goes into the house treasury. And it's from that pool of money that what they do is then allocated and decided on. So let's say we get together with some people and I don't know, I think maybe we want to pay certain guest speakers to come on who are experts in the thing that we're really interested in. And we're all prepared to pay $2 or $5 a month to be in a group of like-minded people to make that happen. And then we propose this speaker, and the speaker's asking for this much money. And then we think, yeah, okay, that one's a good one. And it gets passed. And then we get to enjoy that speaker coming to talk to us for a day or something like that. So that's, you can imagine all sorts of other ways of doing it. But yeah, it's how to do this in a kind of group way that's, I think, really interesting way of doing monetization.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it could get messy. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's kind of democratizing it. You can vote on it, whatever. But yeah, I mean, they do have some wild ideas.
Yes, right. I mean, the other thing to stress here is you don't have to set it up like that. You can be like a normal solo creator, and maybe you're doing lots of public rooms and you want people to support what you're doing, and those people will pay. And that's fine too, because, then it's just one person in charge of the money, I think. So that kind of normal setup is fine too. But I think what Clubhouse are betting on is that they can unlock something really interesting about a group of people being invested in that. And you can imagine that if you've paid for something, but you've also had a say in it, you've had a vote, you're probably going to be a really engaged person who's going to turn up to that room. You're not going to miss it. You might even tell other people about it. You might even persuade other people to pay for it because you know that the more money the house has, the better stuff it can do. So there's lots of like nice incentives that mean you have an engaged community who are helping produce things.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And, you know, if nothing else, Clubhouse really do come up with these ideas and give them a go, don't they? You know, looking at the houses and the invites and the invite only stuff and all the different aspects of it. Like when we've sat here and gone, well, okay, what do we want social audio to look like? What would be sort of our dream for it to be? Clubhouse always seems to come up with stuff that I would never have even thought of, and then they give it a go. So good for them. I think it's all good. I mean, we've also had news this week that we're now able to log into Clubhouse on the web. And Michael, I think you've actually managed to do that, have you? I believe it's a two-way street. We can listen and speak, and yeah, it's all open on the web.
It's not all open on the web, but parts of it are. Yeah, Clubhouse has sort of dipped their toe into the water of the web and breaking away from the app-based platform that they have been. And the way they've done it is actually pretty smart. What they've done is they've made it so that the lounge of a house can be accessed through the web. Now, I say that because the lounge is actually considered an always-on room in a house. Whenever you go into a house page, the lounge is right there. You're kind of already in the lounge, and if somebody's speaking in the lounge, you can hear them. There are no moderator controls in the lounge. There's no audio controls or any other controls. It is just simply a place where you can speak and listen, and that's about it. So I think fairly smartly, to dip their toe in the water of the web, they have made it so that when you log on to Clubhouse's website, you will see all of your house pages. And if you click on a particular house, you will be put into the lounge where you could hear people. And then you can also choose to go to the stage and speak through either your webcam, or if you have like a roadcaster like myself, or a USB microphone, anything like that, then you can speak to people who are in the lounge of that house. There are some basic chat functions that are available. You can open up sort of a sidebar where you access the chat function of the lounge, so you can have text-based communications with people. You can also choose to open up the house chat, so you can see all of the messages that people have left in the house page, including images. What you cannot do is you cannot post images. There's a lot of other functions that you can do in the app that you can't do on the web yet. But this is a very, very early version or entrance into the web for Clubhouse. And I imagine that as time goes on, they are going to expand all the capabilities and what you can do and where you can go, possibly starting house pages or house rooms from the web. We'll just have to see where it goes from here. But historically, Clubhouse has been saying, well, to get on the web, you've got to support not just iOS and Android, but also a whole new platform. And now they have done that. And it's probably partially because they are expanding out onto this new code base that houses are built on top of, gives them a lot more options and capabilities for Clubhouse. And it certainly, by going onto the web, it's fulfilling the wishes of a lot of people. A lot of people have asked for web-based options for Clubhouse, and now they are getting into it. So there you go.
I mean, does this make a bit more sense of why houses, which I know, houses seem to be quite a divisive feature over on Clubhouse at the moment. Some people love them, some people hate them. There's the invite-only thing. There's opening them up to the public, which we spoke about last week. But actually, have houses allowed Clubhouse to take part of the app and test it out on the web? And that's sort of why that could have potentially been a reason for their being in the first place. Like, does this sort of make a bit more sense if that's what they're trying to do and move into a more web-based application, maybe? I don't know, thinking out loud.
Yeah, I think so. And like I said, Clubhouse has been pivoting to a new code base for, I think, everything that they're doing. But it's taking some time to turn the ship in that direction. And they've been doing that through houses. And so as houses have been built out, they have been given a lot of features that people have been asking for on Clubhouse. And I think what we'll see over time is that those features will expand. Houses will come out of beta. The web-based interface will be expanded so it has more features like the app. And the whole platform is going to be moving away from clubs and the other things that the old code base has been used for. So we'll just have to see where they go. They have said that in the first quarter of this year, they are going to be doing a lot. They're going to be simplifying the interface. They're going to be hopefully getting subscription houses up and going. They've had, like Morgan has said, or has talked about, they have had a couple of public forums, town halls about subscription houses. And so I think they have a real vision for where they want to go, at least for a quarter or two. And they are working on moving in that direction.
It's so cool to see it all evolve. I mean, that's one of the reasons me and Madalyn love doing all things audio, was to, kind of really track this from where it all started to where it was all going and be kind of part of the journey. So, yeah, this just seems like the next phase, and a very interesting one at that. We're going to change tack slightly now, Madalyn, and talk about podcasting, aren't we?
Yes, because you and I are longtime podcasters, and we know a lot of podcasters do come and listen to this or listen to the podcast version if they're not here live. And so from time to time, we share just some interesting podcast news we come across. We don't do it all the time, but There was just some really interesting things I came across that I thought we should touch on. There's this new article that came out. Let's see who this is from. Morning Consult, talking about there's these new insights saying 33% say YouTube is the most preferred podcast platform ahead of Spotify and Apple. I found that to be an interesting percentage because I just would not have thought that. Maybe because I'm older or old school. Maybe it's the younger crowd, because then there's another tweet saying that that kind of shows you like breakdown with demographics, U.S. adults and Gen Zs, millennials, Gen Xers, baby boomers. And it is interesting that the younger ones are, I guess, more likely to do video. I know younger generations love YouTube. So I don't know. I was kind of surprised though. I don't know. Were you surprised by this? Maybe I'm just too old school. Like I just don't think of YouTube for listening to podcasts.
Yeah, well, clearly YouTube think of YouTube as listening to podcasts because, I mean, we've been talking about it for a really long time. I know Jennifer was chatting about it a few months ago with us about YouTube diving into YouTube for podcasters. They still haven't really hit the button fully on that yet, but obviously they see that there's a lot of people using the platform for podcast listening. Yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued by this a bit. I mean, these are US stats, and I would love to see UK comparison. I'm not sure that it would be as high over here. I don't know why particularly. I don't know. I think we're still quite on the. Everyone's still trying to work out whether a video podcast isn't just a video. Like, I think everyone's still in that boat, right? And actually, do these stats refer to podcasts that have been created as a video podcast, which I would actually define as a video, whereby, you know, you've got the actual visuals there. You can see people moving, chatting, talking to one another, but you might choose to listen to that as audio only. Or are these stats referring to something like we put out over on YouTube on our All Things Audio channel, Madalyn, which is a static image with just our audio for the podcast on it? And I think there's a real difference between those two types of content. And I think there's a difference for creators and for listeners as well. So I'm super interested in this. You know, for a third of people in this particular survey saying that YouTube is preferred above Spotify and Apple. I think you're right. I think the younger generation definitely are on YouTube. They're there for the shorts. They're on TikTok. They're looking for those visuals and for those, you know, Instagram reels, all that kind of short, snappy visual candy, if you like. And so potentially that's where they go to try and find their podcasts in the first place. Do people even really think about podcatchers? You know, are people really thinking about Apple Podcasts or, you know, even Google Podcasts? I mean, a lot of people I know who've got an Android phone don't even realise Google Podcasts is a thing. Like, they either use a different podcatcher or they go to YouTube. So maybe that's the thing. And in the end, maybe Google just creates all of it. You know, Google Podcasts becomes YouTube podcasting because they're all the same company. And that's where they go forward with it. But yeah, super interesting stats here. And you know, good to see them and chat about them.
Yeah, and there are plenty of podcast hosts that I feel like they're really more about the video aspect, like Joe Rogan, you know, comes to mind. Like, you can always go to YouTube and see the visual of his podcast because it's a YouTube video versus just listening. I just feel like listening is just so easy to consume. You don't have to be on a screen. You don't have to be in front of a computer or looking at your mobile. You can be out, you know, at the gym, driving. There's so many different things you can be doing because you don't have to look at something. But we also know people like to also watch a video. And you know, I really thought live streaming, you know, remember years back, live streaming became a huge thing, right? And I thought that maybe we would see more video podcasts. And I've definitely seen, like, when I think of some of the podcasters that were already incorporating video, like Lewis Howes comes to mind. I've been a fan of his School of Greatness podcast for many, many years. And he always had a video version of it. But I prefer to listen just to the podcast version. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I'm a little bit older. Maybe it's just too much work. I don't know. But it is. I did find this article and these stats super interesting.
I mean, as a podcast editor, we are, my company, we are seeing more and more people come to us and go, should I just continue with this podcast or should I concentrate on YouTube? And it's obviously filtering down that people are using YouTube to listen and for their content, that's where they're heading. I don't know. For me, you just said it there, Madalyn. Like, a video podcast is live streaming, right? And as an editor, I edit a video different to how I edit the audio. So even if someone, we edit video podcasts a couple of times a week, and one of us will do the video edit, and then we'll go back and take the audio, and the other one will do the audio edit, because you do it in a different way. There are things that explain themselves when you can see what's happening on the screen that you can't leave in an audio edit, because it will just sound like a huge pause and no one knows what's going on. So, I still see them as two very different things. And I actually think no one's truly got a handle on what one is. To me, it's just a live stream under a different name, or, a recorded version under a different name with visuals. But I don't know. I've definitely not got it defined in my head.
Yeah, I think there's just so many different ways to consume a podcast. And I think more and more podcasters are having a video version because of the popularity of YouTube. I think that's what a lot of this boils down to. And then these younger generations that live on YouTube. And when you see those stats that really are showing bigger numbers for the younger ones, it's like, okay, that's kind of making sense. I'm wondering if we're going to see more podcasters that traditionally just have audio only are going to have a video version. Or maybe, many times when we're interviewing somebody, we're doing it through Zoom or we're doing it through some other platform where we see them, we have a video, but we choose to just post the audio only. And I'm wondering if more and more people are going to start taking that video they already have and put that on YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. And but there's still a quality issue with that as well, though. It's still, are you lit properly for the video? And the more people that do it, the higher that bar is going to need to be to make sure that your content is well received, well respected, and therefore discovered. It all feeds on itself. The audio has to be cracking, the video has to be great, and all that has to be in place to please the algorithm, really, at the end of the day.
And I saw Morgan had his hand raised. Morgan, did you have something to add?
No, yeah, just a couple of things that I remembered. I can't find the sources of them, but one was a survey at the beginning of last year, which said, it was the United Kingdom, something like 80% of men that they surveyed said that this year their attention was to start a podcast. And that was 2022. But it sounds like that's shifted to them wanting to be YouTubers. There was that other one, which was famous maybe a year or two ago. It's Creator Economy time, which was young kids saying that the thing they wanted to grow up most of all was a YouTuber, and that was coming above astronaut for the first time. So that there are those two things. But yeah, also interestingly, a couple of days ago, we saw, can't remember his full name, but that chap Mario, who's running the large daily spaces that you may or may not like, but he did a live stream, a video, where he put up his Zoom call and they did a watch along. So it feels like everyone who's doing audio eventually tries their hand at adding video too.
I mean, let's be clear, if you're making the content anyway, I'm all for getting the most out of the content, repurposing the content. As Madalyn says, if you're recording something via Zoom, then you may as well have the audio in your back pocket and, have it there for clipping or for using as a video version of it. But yeah, I don't think it's very clear cut. I think it's always down to what platform is your audience on? Why is it you're creating the content? Is your audience more likely to be listening or viewing? What's your call to action, and what's the best way of presenting that to your audience to ensure they take the action that you want them to? So, all of those things have to be considered. But, I'm all for 10 timesing your content and getting as much out of it as you can. And, Zoom and Riverside and all of those kind of platforms make it easy to do that. They're going to record. It's literally a toggle. It'll record your video while you're recording your audio. So, yeah, all super interesting. And in fact, the next piece that we got here, another tweet from Matt Navarra, is equally interesting. Madalyn, this says, new podcast creation nosedived in 2022.
Yeah, this one caught my attention when I saw this tweet. I'm like, what? So I had to read this one. You guys can check it out. It's an article from The Verge. But here are the takeaways I got from this. Some really interesting things that were in this article. It says people are launching way fewer podcasts. The number of new shows that debuted in 2022 was down 80% since 2020. Now, we know that probably a big part of that is because of the pandemic, right? This article said podcast creation peaked in 2020 when people truly had nothing better to do. And we know that's why Spaces and Clubhouse and things were doing so well in the early days, because people were in lockdown, trying to find new things to do, or maybe pivoting their business. And what an easy way to build community and share your expertise with social audio. But what this article says is that the number of new shows in 2020 was even lower than pre-pandemic levels, which I thought was super interesting. And it also said new episode creation has done better, though. So this Listen Notes, which I guess is a place where they compile the stats, logged 26.1 million new episodes published in 2022, which was up from 18.1 million in 2019. So interesting that more people launched podcasts during that time period. But then in 2022, when the number of podcast creations have dropped, more episodes. And I think that just shows that there's so many podcasters that have been around a long time. They're still going. And you got some that probably did try this during the pandemic. And we know many people launch a podcast. And isn't there some studies, Suze, where there's this average number of episodes, for the average podcaster? It's really low, right? It's really not a huge percentage that keeps going.
It's quite unusual for people to get kind of up to 50 episodes.
50, yeah, I think that's what it was.
It's quite rare. But pod fade is a huge thing because a podcast is a real long-term, consistent piece of content that will work for you, but it does need that consistency. And partly that is because of what I've already mentioned, the algorithm. We rely on the algorithms where we're uploading our podcast and our host will distribute it out to all these different places. But there are so many podcasts out there that if your feed, your RSS feed isn't literally being fed in a consistent way, the algorithm will just not see you as often. And eventually it will just drop back and drop back and drop back. So this is the thing. It's about consistency of creation. It's a long game. It's a great game. I love it. It's loads of fun, but it's a long game. Yeah.
But also I feel like social audio is so much easier than podcasting. I've been doing podcasting for so long. It is so much work. Even if you have just a simple format to it, there's so much to it. Whereas I find social audio so easy. Plus you don't need the fancy equipment. So that might be playing a part in some of these stats. It might be that there's less people venturing the podcast during that period of time because, that's when social audio was getting going. And maybe some people were going to start a podcast, tried Clubhouse, tried Spaces, and thought, you know what? I really like doing this. I'm just going to go this route. So I'm sure, when you think that would play a role in some of these reduced numbers of new podcasts?
It could do. The thing about social audio is the creation in the moment. And again, don't get me wrong, this takes time to put together and to plan and to think about. But, it's just a different way of putting a podcast out there. For us, we literally record this as a podcast and that gives us our weekly feed of our RSS feed, if you like. But I think as well, podcasting in itself is kind of almost lagging behind a bit of where we are in the tech world. Podcasting could be integrating social audio in one way or another. Yes, there have been some forays into audio NFTs and crypto payments and things for podcasters, but none of that is really very mainstream. And also, when you think about the way that people are listening in their homes now, and certainly since the pandemic, loads of people have smart speakers in their homes. You know, we know that it's a huge number of people who will talk to their device and ask their device to play a song from a streaming partner or, turn on a radio station. So what we really probably want to be doing is asking those devices to play our favourite podcasts for us. But that is broken. The voice search in podcasting does not work. Google are kind of limping along there trying to get it to work, but Google Assistant in itself isn't necessarily as set up for that kind of stuff. So, you know, we have to think about the way that we access the content and whether or not our content is there and ready for it. And at the moment, I'd suggest that it kind of isn't. You get in your car and you want to ask it to play Apple Music to play your favourite songs, but you can't ask Apple Podcasts to play your favourite podcast and get the latest episode of it. And that's broken. So discoverability and accessibility, really, for podcasting, it's not great right now.
Right. Absolutely. Let's do our question of the week, because I think this is so cool, this new idea we came up with. And if anybody here would like to request the mic to talk with Suze and I about any of the things we've already discussed, or you like this new question of the week we're going to throw out there, and we already have Morgan and Michael here, would love to hear their thoughts as well. Just something we're trying. Look, we'd like to try new things from time to time. So let us know what you think. So here's the question I came up with that I want to pose to everyone. I'm going to start with you first, Suze. So what do you think? Host a podcast, a social audio show, or both? What are the pros and cons? I mean, you and I are already doing this, and I can't wait to hear from others. But, you know, what's your personal opinion? Do you think it's best to go down the route of hosting a podcast? Do you think it's better to just focus on social audio? Or I know, you know, for both of us, we're doing both here for all things audio. We decide why not. So what are your thoughts on all this?
I mean, there are lots of different models, right? So, yeah, we're going the route of let's do a social audio show that we record and put out as a podcast. I would love to see, say, a series of a podcast all planned out, 10 episodes, you know, where you're going with that podcast, but it's sidecarred by social audio, and you do both. So you have your podcast that you're very in control of that content and putting the message out, but then your social audio where you're involving your community in that podcast. Last week, for example, Madalyn, when we spoke about that podcast episode, that was amazing to speak about. You know, we discussed someone else's podcast episode we had both listened to, and we opened the floor to get opinions on that particular subject and that particular episode. And actually, if you were doing that regularly with your own podcast, I think that could work so well. And to me, that is where the trick's being missed at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with you. I can't wait to hear from others here, see what they think.
Yeah, Michael, give us your comments.
Yeah, I actually have done both myself. The first half of 2022, I hosted a program on Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces, simulcasted between the two. And then I would take the audio from those and I would whittle it down and edit it down into something that worked really well as an audio podcast. You can check out the Sterling Clear audio podcast if you want to listen to what that sounded like. But it was a lot of work to take the audio from a social audio room, and I feel like do it the right way to create a podcast where, you know, the people who are speaking, you somehow are able to reference their Twitter profile or their website or whatever, so people who are listening could know who is speaking. I still host on Clubhouse, and I think one of the things that's really amazing about that is that it's sort of what I call an audio plus experience. You get the conversation and spontaneity of social audio, but then you also can get the pinned links so that you can reference things that are elsewhere on the web. You can tap into people's profiles as they're speaking and learn more about them and follow them on their socials and so on. And so, you know, in some ways, a podcast is kind of limited in that it's only audio, or as you've spoken about, video and audio. But there is something about social audio and being able to make further connections with the people who you are resonating with, who are speaking or who you're speaking with, that I think is really powerful. And one of the things that I'm doing actually is exploring how to maybe merge the best of social audio with podcasting. Because I think one thing right now that social audio is missing is not quite discoverability, but the ease of listenability that podcasting has. Because you can load up a bunch of different programs that you like in your podcast player, and when one episode finishes, the next one starts playing. And social audio doesn't really have anything like that yet, and I think it should. And I'm exploring how maybe to find the best way to sort of integrate the two a little. I don't know.
That's a great point, Michael. I love that you brought that up because podcasts are easy to consume. I listen to so many podcasts; it's ridiculous, but it's so easy to do. And I just subscribe; they show up automatically in my player. I don't have to do anything. It can go from one episode to the next, no interruption, simple and easy. I wish with social audio there was an easier way to consume it rather than having to go over to the platforms. And of course, spacesdashboard.com. That's always a great place to go too. But I just find that having a podcast player on your phone just makes life so easy. And I'm sure that's why so many people are really into podcasts like myself because of the ease of use. But also, social audio is social. I think that's one of the best things. I mean, look, we're here live, even though we turn this into a podcast, but we have a live audience. We're able to get feedback from you guys in real time and create a community. Can't really do that with a podcast. You can build community, but it's not the same way. I've been podcasting a long time, and my Twitter Smarter podcast, which I'm thinking about relaunching, by the way, I built this great community around that, but it feels very one-sided because it's just me putting this content out. The community is the people that come to me through it. They're like, wow, I really love this podcast. I mean, I would get tweets pretty much every day from people saying, I discovered this podcast. It is amazing. I love this. And then they would learn that I have a Twitter chat, as part of this community. And then they would join the Twitter chat and be even more involved. And so, but it's so different than this. And I think that's why I love social audio, because I love networking. I love building community. And this is the quickest, easiest way to do it.
Yeah, you're right. This is really a great way of closing that disconnect between creator and the audience, and a great way of getting that instant feedback. Like, as a podcaster, I hear quite often like, oh, I'm not sure kind of what topic to cover next, or what do my audience want? Well, in social audio, you can literally ask, like, what is it that you need to know? Like, from our point of view, even, this is all things audio. You're our audience. Tell us what it is. Literally tell us, request the mic. Tell us what it is you want us to talk about. We might have to go away and do a little bit of research, but we'll come back and we'll do that. And then that you're connecting with your audience and giving them the information that they're wanting to listen to. Giving them the content that they want to listen to, which is what every host wants, right?
I was wondering if I could chime in on the video podcasting in YouTube. I mean, I've produced videos since 1998 when I first got into the broadcasting program in college. And so, I'm sort of an old school video production person. And I think, Suze, you and I are similar in that we want the visuals to have meaning and to be purposeful and intentional. And just taking a Zoom call and making a video out of it and sticking it on YouTube just doesn't feel quite right. And so, I mean, some podcasters have done this really well. I've listened to the MacBreak Weekly podcast for a long time. Leo Laporte does that. He's one of the earliest podcasters, and he has a video version of the podcast. But one thing that I found with that is that a lot of times I don't watch the video portion of it. I will just listen to the audio. And then if they happen to reference something on a website or something that has a visual element, then I'll pull the phone out of my pocket and I'll unlock the screen and I'll watch that portion of the video for a while. And then when I've kind of seen enough, I'll turn it back off. I'll keep listening, but I'll put the phone back in my pocket again. And so I guess if YouTube came up with some sort of a way to turn off the screen, put the phone device in your pocket and just keep listening for a while, that would be great. But I think it's still so video focused. The culture is, it is video first and the audio goes along with it. that's a hurdle that they need to overcome. But video to me should be intentional. If you're going to have a visual element, have a reason for it, have something you're actually showing that adds benefit to the content over the audio. But I think in a lot of ways, when it's just conversations with people, especially, you don't need to see that. We've experienced that with social audio, that you can have such deep connection with people just through the sound of the voice. And sometimes the visuals can be distracting, I think, even. So I'll just leave it right there. Thanks.
I do want to mention when I'm on YouTube, and sometimes I just want to listen to something or just listen to a song, and I'm not really interested in watching the video. I just want to hear the song. I'm able to put it in my pocket and still listen without the visuals being on, and it's been working okay like that through YouTube. Oh yeah, I do have the pay. I do have the pay subscription. Maybe that's why. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I let me tell you guys, I've done the paid YouTube thing for years because I hate commercials, and I'm so I don't get on YouTube because of the commercials. And then one time I decided to try premium. Maybe they were doing some kind of special, or it was years back. Fell in love with it, and for me personally, is worth all the money for that because I don't have to, be forced to watch commercials. And that makes sense. The fact that I can just listen to something, I can just put my phone in my pocket, not worry about the screen being on. It's a great perk.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying, Michael. That's exactly what I was kind of getting at, in that, if we're creating a podcast, why is audio the best way to get your message across to people? If you're creating video, why is video the best way to get your message across to people? And yet I'm just not interested in watching two people have a conversation on Zoom. But maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm not of the generation where I want to just see two people having a chat. But there you go.
Thank you to all of our speakers who came on and shared so much great stuff. And we're available in all of your favorite podcast apps. We're out there, All Things Audio. You can also go to allthingsaudiopodcast.com as well.
You certainly can. And you can catch us here on Twitter and use the hashtag AllThingsAudio, and we'll pick that up throughout the week. So that's it for this week. But thank you so much to everyone that's been here in the space with us and those of you listening. And we'll catch up with you next week.
Bye, everybody.